We're ready to go, aren't we? Okay. Anything you say now, maybe taking in evidence against you?
Am I on? Because I can't see myself. Here I am.
You
Excellent.
found yourself now?
I have found myself, I think.
There's nobody there.
Yes, there we go.
Shame if nobody showed up, isn't it?
Oh, no, there's 10 people there. Hello. Hi, good evening. We were just having a bit of panic in case nobody showed up this evening. Now the series is over. So it's really nice to see you. Hi, Kevin. Hi, and Matthew. Hello. Hi. So you can see all the fruits of my labours about the place. I'm hoping to discuss a bit about the project tonight. Hello. Hi, Eli.
Evening, Simon.
Hello, Si. So we've got my computer guy here as well, so if you've got any computer questions, he's the man for that. Hi, Zandra. Hello. So I'm doing a bit of cutting this evening, and this is a very different thing. I'm cutting an outline block. I'm going to just hold it up. So, hi Ginger. Hi. So you can see what I'm doing. There's a bit of a time lapse on the camera. So let me just hold that up. Can we get that? Yeah. Very different from what I was doing before. So this is going to be a multi-block print that I'm cutting at the moment, but I'm cutting myself an outline block. So this is the black block that I'm cutting here, just for something to do really while I'm chatting to you guys, because I've been printing all day, so I'm a bit printed out at the moment. Hi Mark. Hello. Okay, hopefully you can see all this stuff laid out in front of me. Good evening, good evening. So it feels really weird that the series is over now, and we have a little break before we do the Japanese woodblock one. So we're making the most of having a little pause in between. So I'm working on this funny illustrative block at the moment. Because my guilty lockdown pleasure is watching tattoo competitions, so I thought it'd be quite fun to do a kind of tattoo lino cut. I hasten to say that I have never been brave enough to have a tattoo, but I've been fascinated by watching these tattoo competitions on TV. So this block that I'm working on at the moment, I'm going to make a bit like a tattoo. Hi Gary, hi Marvin. And Marion, hello. So the other thing I wanted to show you were the two different versions of this print, the Scottish print.
Matthew Walton didn't know that there were tattoo competitions.
No tattoo competitions tonight. No. We as a family, we're absolutely pants because none of us have any tattoos to show off. This is as close as we get, so I'm just going to hold that up again so that people who've just joined can see. So lots of very fine detail cutting with this one. I'm just going to get Ben to hold that in front of you. And also lettering, which is quite tricky. So if you guys can see at the moment, there's sort of a big tube of ink squirting ink down onto a roller, which is rolling out over a block here, and it's really confusing because I'm having to do the illustration shows a printing block with a letter with love written on it. So of course in the print the letters have got to be in reverse, which means on the block they've got to be the right way round. But because I teach, every instinct is screaming at me that they shouldn't be this way around on the block, because I'm always warning students about that. So this is really, really messing with my head. So that's what I'm working on. just at the moment. And I'm just using...
Big praise for your design on the Baron, love.
Oh, you like the Baron? Yeah, they're really cute Barons. They're very nice for turning into an illustration. And I quite like this kind of thing because it's so different from what I normally do. When I was a student, I used to work more do this kind of thing, and I don't tend to do this now. So this is a sort of bit of a break, and I thought that I might have a go at some metallic paint or some metallic ink on this as well, just to see how I get on. Where are my Friday night earrings? I haven't got any on tonight, have I? No, but I've got a Friday night haircut. I hope you've noticed, everybody. I've had all my hair chopped off, which feels fantastic. So you have to have the Friday night haircut instead. And so the tools that I'm using for all this fine cutting, I've gone back to my Japanese cutting tools here, very fine V tools and U tools that I'm using. Just to get nice and accurate. So I think this particular set, this will probably have maybe 3 colour blocks and this black outline block on it. Yeah, the metallic does, yeah, I think metallic will be quite fun to use. But that means that I'll probably use water-based metallic because I've got some schminky metallic stuff, and I think I've got speedball as well. So I've got water-based metallic ink, but I haven't got oil-based. So what I think I might do is do the metallic layer first and then overprint with the black oil-based ink, which probably will work. I will try it and see, but I don't see why it wouldn't, because I've worked with water-based inks before where I've done sort of like the bottom layers in water-based ink and then oil-based ink over the top of them, and that usually works really well because the oil-based really covers the water-based very nicely. So that's sort of something to bear in mind. If you're working with water-based and oil-based ink in the same print, then you always have to do the water-based stuff underneath. Which sounds really obvious, but it's easy to forget. But that's what I think I'll probably end up doing with this one. Because, nice though it is, I'm not going to buy special inks for it. Right, Colleen hasn't heard of metallic ink. Yeah, I think that I've got some knocking about. Yeah, I think in that tin, in the tin of water-based inks, I think I've got some. Yeah, Ben's going to have a look and see if he can find some for you. Did I draw out the design? Odette wants to know if I drew out this design in great detail. I did. I messed about with it a lot because with something like this, I really need to know where everything's going for it all to make sense, because this is basically a block that's just the sort of outline of everything. I wanted to make sure it was reasonably accurate, and you can see here my initial drawing it didn't have the wood grain and stuff in, but it had all the outlines of everything. So what I did was I had like the outline drawing and I transferred that with the tracing, which had all the lettering and stuff. And then I've added in the detail, like the little cut marks and the wood grain. And also we've made corrections because Ben very sensibly pointed out that the way I'd drawn it initially, the love bit here didn't go round the roller correctly, so we altered that. Oh right, here we go, metallic ink. Let's get smeary with the metallic ink. It's just want a piece of paper to smear ink about.
You got one? Do you want one?
Yeah,
over here?
I can't quite bring myself to smear it on Awagami's washi paper, which is what I've got to hand. So that's newsprint. It'll be too absorbent. Can you pass me? There's copy of paper there. Copy of paper underneath next to that. Lovely. Okay. So I've got, this is Schminky, and thank you. I have to say it's really, really old, but hopefully it will. Oh yeah, look, that's cool. A nice coppery one. And these would all be compatible with those Nershow inks that I was using. I'm calling it Nershow, Lucas they're called now. Those Lucas inks that I was using. Actually, it's hats off to Schminky. They've been sat there for, I don't know, like 5 years, something like that. Hi Claire. Thank you for buying one of my prints. I'm really pleased to be selling these for the Artist Support Pledge. Now the Speedball one is a bit gloopier. Okay, there we go. Right, let's see if we can make those. This one,
I
don't even know what that is. I don't think that's ink. I think that's for rubbing on picture frames, so I don't think I'll use them. Yeah, so there we go. It's a metallic. Can we make that do its metallic thing at all? I just think with a design like this, like more is more sometimes. So yeah, there you go. You can see they're metallic. Hi Gary. Yeah, so with a design like this, it's quite fun to work with really bright colours and metallics and stuff like that. So it's a sort of break from all the subtle landscapey colours that I've been using and being a bit more adventurous. So I probably have some fun from that. Yeah, absolute break from my normal colour range. I'm channeling American traditional tattoos because they're really bright colours and a really black outline. And so I'm going to go for that colour scheme and we'll see what we get. But you can see here with these ones that I've been working on, I've kind of been quite subtle with the colours, although that one's quite bright, I guess. And I changed the block as well. If you watched, do I always glue the liner onto the wooden block before I start the cutting? I usually do, because I just find it's more stable. I find it much, if I'm doing something like this where I'm cleaning right to the edge, then it's easier if it's stuck to something because it's then held flat as you sort of clean out, because I would be cleaning out using a very flat, like these very flat tools, these very flat chisels. So I'd be cleaning out like this, and it's just really easy if it's stuck down to a block to get those edges flat, because you almost need them sort of chamfered away with no lumps, because when I'm inking this up I just want it to be perfect. I don't want any little bits of transfer and stuff from this. I want it really, really clean. So yeah, I've stuck it down, and what I usually do is just go back and take more away as I go, and you just have to watch those little hairs from the liner, because once it's stuck down and you're cleaning it, you can still get these little hairy bits of the Hessian sticking up, so they need to come off as well because they'll catch the ink. So I can get rid of those.
Roseanne has an interesting scenario there, 3 up from the bottom.
Right, so I've been watching you do variations of the 2 prints for the series. Do I ever do this on a reduction print?
It's asking for trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. No, I don't, because With
You did with the dawn and dusk moon.
Oh, you're right. I did do it once. I did 2 prints, and they were called Dawn and Dusk Moon, and it was for our open studios. So in Buckinghamshire, we have like an event where people can come into your studio and see an exhibition, and they have a catalogue. And for some reason, you have to supply a square image to go in the catalogue, which is like a disaster for me because mine are either long and thin or tall and thin. So every year I tended to do a sort of square image for the catalogue. So I did 2 versions of this one image. That was a reduction that I did 2 versions of, but it was a very little print. It was a very simple print. But normally I wouldn't, because when I do a reduction print, there's so much thinking goes into what's needed next. If I multiply that up by, oh, this is the green version and this is the blue version and this is the gold version or whatever, I think that's probably just too much for my small mind to embrace and work out. So I do sort of change things around a bit as I go with the reduction print, but it's across the whole edition. And also there's a problem with selling it. If you sell prints as you've either got to sort of like sell it as an edition, or you sell them as individual works or a series of works, and it's kind of tricky. I think I would stick to doing multi-block variations, which I do with Japanese woodblock. If you look at my gallery, there's one called Near Applecross, and there's a whole set of them in completely different colourways. Oh, Christine, thank you. So Christine likes the flexible approach to multi-block. Yeah, it's this sort of way of working where you can see actually with these 2, so that was the version I printed on the video, and this is the version that I'm selling for the Artist Support Pledge. So I've actually taken this block and I've chopped into it. I'll get Ben to hold those up. So I changed the block quite a lot. Yes, Colleen, I do measure where to centre the lino before I start cutting it. So I do on the multi-block ones, not on a reduction print. So yeah, the flexibility of multi-block. So these ones have all been really flexible. I basically started off with 4 bits of lino that were this size, and I've just sort of chopped into them. So there are no outline blocks on this method of printing. And I've been able to develop it as I go and change things and not lose blocks. So like, for example, with these 2, originally they were going to be pretty similar in colourways, and then I changed it completely because I thought it would be kind of nice to do an evening version of it. Whereas with this one is going to be absolutely tight because this is the block that's going to dictate the outline. So because it's going to give the outline of all the shapes have to fit the outline. So I can't just develop them at random. So what I will end up with here is a much more static, much more fixed design, which is kind of something that I've always really struggled with multi-block lino. I can imagine doing it for something really graphic like this, but I would hate to be pinned down for something like this at the very beginning. Oh, that tree is going to be this shape and it's going to have these shadows in it and what have you, because as a printmaker, I develop things as I go along. And even if I'd hate anyone to listen to my sort of introductory film to the series and then look at what I'm doing, because in the introduction I sort of say I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do the other, and then it all changes as I go along anyway. So I'm not very good at like having a plan and just sticking to that plan. All right, what do we got here? Hello, hi Daniel. Excellent. So Mark says, with lockdown easing, are you thinking about doing normal teaching face to face? Yes, yes I am. Thank you for asking. I am teaching face to face again. My first class is in September, and I'm back at the Courtyard Art Studio. If you listen to my podcast, Ask an Artist, you'll know that I work with my co-host Peter Keegan. It's actually his art school up there at Claydon in Buckinghamshire, so it's about 10 minutes up the road, and it's very posh. It's in our local stately home, which is called Claydon House, which is rather a nice building, and it used to be Florence Nightingale used to hang out there quite a lot with the family, and I teach in the courtyard there, so I've got classes coming up in lino cut and also in Japanese woodblock. So we're hoping to fill those classes. Actually, I think the first one's a sellout, but we've got a few spaces left. So it'll be really interesting teaching post-COVID. But the courtyard are on top of it. I think they're making a film about the proceedings, and they're working out a safe way to do it. So yes, I will be teaching face-to-face, which I'm kind of excited about because it seems like ages since I did that. So that should be good fun. Though hopefully some of my students will have kept up with the printing through the tutorials I've been doing. Yeah, so what have we got? Any other questions? Yeah, so I'm going to just cut a little bit here. I'm working on a border around the edge of the heart shape, and it's got quite a sort of I suppose it's almost Art Deco kind of pattern on it, and I want to keep the pattern fairly unified. I quite like that it's hand drawn and it's not perfect, but when I do a pattern like this, what I tend to do is I'll use the same tool to make cuts all the way around. So I've got this little U tool. It's a 1.5mm U, and I'm going to use that to cut my between the lines so that I end up with all the lines being the same sort of width, because I keep wanting to say YouTube, U tools, they're really good for doing really standard shaped lines, so I'm going to do that. Marion says, hello Laura, is extender the same as transparent white? I think it is. No, Ben is making no faces at me.
Transparent white is a white.
It is a white, you're right, he's quite right.
Whereas extender has no pigment in it at all.
Good, thank you for reminding me. I have, as I say, I've been printing all day, so I'm not thinking straight. So yes, you have, I haven't got any transparent white to show you. I've only got opaque white, but if you want completely transparent, then you want extender for that. So just be aware of that. And right, so I'm just going to come along and do my cutting with this U tool first of all. So I'm just taking out the bits where my tool will fit, and that's giving me my standard width cut, and then I'll go in and tidy it up. And if it's like, if I've got bits of the pattern where it's not quite standard width, I'll come back in and sort that out later. But looking at this isn't very standard. I think if I was in one of those tattoo competitions, I'd probably be in a lot of trouble for the drawing. So yes, Adette, you've just got a 2mm tool. It is good for a neat, even line. They are terrific. I've got, actually I can see your 2mm tool, and I've got a 0.5mm U gouge, which is really good for doing little lines. I've used this tiny U tool to do, there are some stripes at the back of this banner So I've used the U tool for that. Yeah, you can see maybe the stripes at the back of the banner there. Yeah, thank you. So John wants to know if I show my work at exhibitions, solo or with others, and are there any in the pipeline? I do actually have a show on at the moment in Suffolk. I want to say Suffolk. It's at the lovely Imagine Gallery, and we are just going to look at where that is. But yes, the galleries are opening now. So Sudbury, that's it. Imagine Gallery in Sudbury. I've got a show. There's a printmaking show which I have quite a lot of work in, and I've got a show coming up in December in Stroud, which I'm really excited about. That's at a place called the Clay Loft, and that is with a chap called Tom who runs a pottery works there, and I'm having a show with a potter who makes the most amazing ceramics out of, he goes out and digs up rocks in the landscape and grinds them up and makes them into glazes. And he makes clays, and he makes these amazing pots, and his name is Matthew Blakely, and I'm sharing a show with him. I'm doing the prints and he's doing the pots, and we're having some workshops and stuff, and the details of that are on my website. I'm just trying to think if I've got any other shows coming up this year, and I'm hoping to have a show up in Scotland at Birch Tree Gallery in Edinburgh. I had a show there last year and that was really great, and I was due to have a show there in July and we couldn't do it because I couldn't travel up there, so I'm hoping to reprieve that. So I do show, and I do art shows and art festivals, and hopefully, you know, as soon as it opens up we'll get back to that. But it is a tricky time. It's really difficult to have exhibitions and stuff at the moment. So the final I do. That's.
There are a couple of questions that we've missed out here.
Oh right, okay.
So Sharon earlier on said, are you able to get good prints from old lino blocks?
Yes.
Not so relevant for you, but
you can get really good ones, and I know that because the tools that I use I inherited from Ben's grandfather via his mum, and Jim Boswell, who was a terrific artist. He did a few record covers, and one of them was a lino cut, and I actually printed that up from his blocks a few years ago. Ben's mum dug it out and I printed it, and it printed a treat, and that was lino, ancient lino. I mean, he must have done that in the 50s maybe, do you think, Ben?
Sorry?
Reckon Jim cut that lino in about the 50s.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, it was for it was a record label for a folk group. So I was able to print it, and it printed fine. Thing about lino is it goes off and it goes hard, but that doesn't actually matter if it's being cut because it's just hard. So we went to the Higgins Gallery in Bedford, which has Edward Borden's collection of prints in it. It's got his archive, and there were lots of his lino blocks there, and I reckon you could probably have easily printed off them. They were absolutely fine. So Roni, you know Jagita, she's lovely, isn't she? Yes, at Birch Tree. Oh, and you bought one of my prints. Fantastic, thank you very much. So I must get, Ellie wants to know, as a printmaker, what's my biggest achievement? What lino print are you most happy with? The lino print that I'm most happy with is the next one I'm going to cut. which is a bit of a trite answer. I mean, there are lino prints that kind of mark a point of change in my work, where I really get my act together and I learn something that is going to really, really improve my work. So there's a print called Falling Curve in my gallery, which is a picture of Cheddar Gorge, and that was a real departure in what I was doing and the way that I was doing things. And it's the first time I really used extender well. So that kind of was a landmark print for me. But it's usually to do with technique, the prints that I really value, rather than the image has to be not, I have to love the image, but it's actually kind of the technique that I really fall in love with. And as for greatest achievement, I don't know. I really couldn't say that. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, I think possibly being able to communicate what I'm doing with other people, I think is quite a good achievement, because it's always lovely when you get people who don't understand something and you're able to explain it in a way that they do understand it. And I teach an awful lot of people, and of all those awful lot of people, there is maybe a handful of people who've gone on to do really great things. And that for me is always, I'm much more excited about that really than anything else. The idea that you are responsible for sort of setting someone off on their journey to do something is really exciting. So yeah, I think that's probably an achievement. Right, Cheryl. Sorry.
John wants to know about exhibitions and stuff, so you just need to confirm that they're on your website.
John, yeah, they are indeed on my website. And Sharon wants to know, are you too late to buy any of the prints that I've recently advertised? No.
Hang on just a second.
This is what I've been printing all day. So, yeah, Ben is going to show you. There we go, yeah.
All right, that's enough of that.
Yeah, so there they are, all hanging up there. So no, the answer is they are still very much on sale, and it's interesting because you never know which prints are going to be popular or something like that. But these two are the best sellers, and they'll be back in the shop very shortly. So I've sorted this one out, but this one I've got to print tomorrow, and they've got to dry, of course. So they will be back in the shop next week. Right, Anne, hi from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. It's Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh.
I am so rubbish at pronunciation. I'm really sorry about that. I always feel really bad about that. Good. Yeah, permission to experiment. That's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because it's like there are rules about stuff. And I often get people who come to classes and they say, oh no, you can't do that with lino cut, or I didn't know I could do that, and things like that. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that as long as you don't compromise the sort of archival quality of the work, it doesn't really matter what you do, because everything's up for grabs. There are no printmaking police, I think. What I would say is I would never do something that might cause the print to deteriorate, because if I sell it, then I want it in the best possible condition for the client. So I would never do anything like maybe adding stuff to the ink that might cause it to discolour or peel or something. I would be very wary of being that experimental. But in terms of taking a print, I had a lady once, and she said, you can't take more than 40% of the lino off the block when you do a lino cut, or it all just falls apart. And really often I have maybe 5% of the lino left at the end of cutting a block, and I'm always sort of amused by the idea that there's this like magic 40%, you can't go any more than that. And that's like extender. People will always tell you you can't use just extender. And yes, you can use just extender. So, oh, that's very kind. Christine thinks that I should be pleased of achieving in the last few months of what we've achieved. I think lockdown's been a really interesting one, and I think we found it like variously fascinating and stressful and difficult and fun, and you know, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. But I do think that all the creatives that I know who are managing have been very proactive. I think it's, you know, you have to kind of get off your bottom and do something proactive. And for my business, I've always found that the best thing for the business is to be really generous with knowledge and helping people. And it's quite an interesting business model as a printmaker. Well, as anybody, I guess, this idea that actually in order to make your business successful, you give loads of stuff out. But actually it's always worked really well for me. And it's, you know, I learn a phenomenal amount. You know, running these live streams and things, I learn just as much back as I give out. So it's all very cool.
So Sylvia would like to know about Gully Climb.
Gully Climb.
Yes. She's emailed you, so she just like
cool.
confirmation that we're going to send out mails.
We are going to do more of those. Yeah, I'm really glad that you've. Yes, the glass shower. Yes, brother-in-law Mark for his glass shower door. Yeah, the shower door has been absolutely brilliant. For those of you who don't know, I do all my mixing on a shower door. So this great big slab of glass behind me is actually my brother's old shower door, which is absolutely fantastic place to mix inks. Yeah, and I think that if at least by doing these videos people try stuff, I think that's great. I think that's really good. And like when I teach my classes, I always try to get people to experiment as much as possible, which is why, you know, we have maybe in an introductory class, I get people to do a reduction print, and they do 6 copies of, you know, 6 prints out off the one piece of lino. And I always try and get them to do 6 completely different colourways at every stage, so that they end up with a really wide selection of experimental prints, because I think it's really nice. And some people really fight that. They don't like that idea that you should just mess about. Right, so... So yeah, Mark was about to take the glass shower door to the tip. Yeah, I can't remember. I must have been staying with you, Mark, when I saw it.
How did we get it from?
How did we get it from you
Stroud?
to us? How did we get it from Stroud to Buckinghamshire? I can't imagine how we got it. That's lost in the dawn of time. How we managed to get the shower door from Stroud to Buckingham. So, will the fine lines get clogged up with ink? Okay, so Odette wants to know if the fine lines on here will get clogged up with ink. That is a really interesting one, and the answer is no, they won't. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use black ink. I'm not going to have... This would be really hard to print with extended inks, because extender is a little bit more sticky, and extender is really quite tricky to do detail like this. So if I want to do something really detailed with, let's say I was going to do a grey, and you know how I mix greys with loads of extender. What I would do if I was printing a fine detail grey is that I would mix up my grey ink, and instead of using extender to make it transparent, I would roll it out so thin it was transparent, and then I'd use that to print with. So I would use neat ink with no extender, but I would just use it really, really thin. So when I print this, I'll roll out the black ink till it's very, very thin. And what I would probably do is just a sort of fine balance to get that. You can see here on this one, if I hold it up to the camera, you can maybe see the fine detail there with those lines. It's just very, very thin layers. The other thing about this one is that because I was producing these for the Artist Support Pledge, I was trying to get them done, and they are actually printed. I printed them bang, bang, bang on the same day, rather than leaving layers to dry in between. So they're actually, there are overlapping layers of ink, but because the layers are so fine, they're virtually dry once they're printed. So if you work really, really thin layers of ink, you can get away with that. It's easier to do if you've got a press, because you do need quite a bit of pressure to get them to print. Christine says that she taught 4-year-olds and their insights taught you something every day. I would totally agree with that. This painting with little rollers, I was years and years ago when I first started doing lino cut again, I had a little girl of 8, and I can't even think whose child she was. But anyway, we were messing about in the studio, and she picked up 2 different coloured rollers and started just playing with them on a piece of lino. At which point I thought, that's a really good idea. So I nicked the idea off a small child, have been using it ever since. And yeah, I mean, people do come up with the most amazing stuff. And it's usually people who've never done it before, because of course they don't have any preconceptions. So I think as a teacher, it's all about kind of just encouraging people rather than shutting them down by telling them exactly how you have to do everything. So I'm always trying to nick ideas off children.
John wants to know how long the videos are going to be left up on YouTube, and we have no plans to take any down.
They'll just be there. They'll be there forever. Well, they'll be there forever until somebody discovers all the mistakes and things and starts nitpicking them, and then I'll get paranoid. But hopefully that won't be for a long time. Good. Well, I'm glad that you kind of are finding it all useful, which is really, really nice. And it has been really useful for me, because I never work with multi-block normally with lino, and doing these little ones has been really fun. And it's been quite a learning curve for me as well. So that's kind of been a bit of jeopardy to doing the films, because I haven't always quite known what I was going to do and how I was going to manage things. So yeah, we've had quite a lot of fun doing that. But the real revelation for me actually was the paper when you're hand printing, having these different papers and the difference they made to the finished print. So, you know, these different coloured papers are really lovely, the kind of different effects they have. I don't know that I would go all out for coloured paper as such, but I've certainly really enjoyed these kind of natural colours. I quite like this. This is Kitakata green, and it has a kind of lovely greeny...
I don't like what it does in the sky.
No, he doesn't like... Well, Ben doesn't like the sky, but, you know, you can't please everybody.
But then I'm terribly literal.
But it's nice to work with. But the washi is so sturdy, you know, when you print by hand and you're rubbing the back of it all the time and stuff. You can see here at the back of the print. And when I get onto the Japanese woodblock series, I'm going to be using more washi paper to work with. So that should be quite interesting. So I'm quite excited to do the next series. Oh, so Matthew teaches martial arts. Yeah, I would imagine with martial arts it's the same sort of thing, as you say, if people don't have any kind of preconceptions. But also it's interesting one of the things that I try and teach people when I'm teaching, and I know this is very much the case in martial arts, is that mindset is quite important, and it helps just to be calm. Lino cut not so much, but when I get onto Japanese woodblock printing, none of it is rocket science, but there's an awful lot of little steps, and the kind of more together you are about it, and the more logical and calm and patient you are, the better it all goes. And when I teach Japanese woodblock, I love teaching people like accountants and dentists and people who are sort of very precise about what they do. It's much easier to teach Japanese woodblock to an accountant than it is to an artist who does like great big sprawly expressive stuff and doesn't like to be neat and tidy and organised. So that would be quite interesting to see in the next series. Oh good. So Ellie's using more extender. Yeah, extender's a really interesting one. I spoke to Cranfield about extender, and I think that they'd not really thought about using it at quite the extent that I do. But there is a group called Pine for Oda that you might know about, who do the most amazing, enormous prints. I think there are 4 of them now that do it, and they work down in Dorset. And they use a lot of extender. They do a lot of kind of cliffs disappearing into mist and stuff like that. Really, really lovely stuff.
It's Devon.
It's Devon, sorry, not Dorset. And their work is really interesting to look at, because I think they do. I think it's woodblock more than lino, but it's Western woodblock, so it's inked and on a press. Like lino is printed, rather than the Japanese woodblock that I'm going to be showing, which is a watercolour technique and done with brushes and not rollers. By the way, if any of you who are watching are lino cut friends people, I'm not going to be able to post about the Japanese woodblock classes on lino cut friends, because that's not lino cut and they won't like that. So it's all going to happen here on YouTube. And I will put out adverts.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I will put out adverts and stuff on my Facebook page and on Instagram. But we're not going to show the whole film on Facebook or the whole films on Instagram, because they're really difficult to upload. And so we're going to keep it all on YouTube. What have we got? So I've lost.
So a couple of questions about washi papers.
Right, for some reason my chapter's frozen, I think. Yeah.
Well, Roseanne says, did you have a paper from the samples that you preferred?
Oh, right, okay, so the papers from here, I really like, Ben's going to have a fiddle with my computer, which seems to have stopped. So I like the bamboo, which is a heavier paper, because I tend to err towards the heavier. This is 170 gram, and it's a really nice kind of blankety soft paper. So I've always liked that bamboo, but I'm kind of loving these lightweight ones as well. The Kitakata, that was the...
Sorry.
It's all right. Oh, there we go. Oh, good, I'm back in the room. The Kitakata, when I did the first series of Lino with Laura, this is the paper I was using to do that bigger print, and that's a beautiful paper. I can't really show it here, but when you tilt the paper to the light, it has a gleam to it, which is really lovely. So that one is only 36 grams. That's a nice one. But the paper that I normally use for Japanese woodblock is Shiramini, and that's Kozo. And the Shiramini is different. I don't think I've got it here. It's different in the pack. Oh, this looks like it. Yeah. So the Shiramini in the pack is not the same as the paper that I use normally, which comes on a roll. They're both called Shiramini, but but that is a really lovely paper.
The sheets are called Shiramini Select.
Right, so Shiramini Select, that's a lovely paper, really, really lovely paper, and that's lovely for Japanese woodblock and for lino cut. So that one I would really, really recommend as a sort of good doer. But I mean, when you have a press, then you can also work with, like, this is Fabriano Rosa Spina, which I use for pretty much all my lino cuts. This is Reeves, and it's, I can't remember what the name of it is, but I had like 4 sheets of it, so I did this print on that buff coloured paper, and then I ran out and I went to reorder it, and I was absolutely horrified to see how much it cost. I don't know how I came into owning some, so I won't be buying any more of that because I can't really justify that. So all of them are going to be on the Fabriano Rosa Spina for the artist support pledge from now on. Right. Okay.
Colleen wants to know about signing and numbering.
Okay. You'll have to read me, Ben, because I'm still not getting any.
Colleen says, where do you put your signature and numbering for prints?
Oh, right, okay. So what I would do is signatures, I would put on the left. Let's get this around the right way. And then the numbering I would put in the right-hand corner, which is kind of the traditional way of doing it. I don't date my work anymore. I used to, and I stopped doing it because I just overheard a conversation at the Royal Society of Painter Printmakers where they were saying, oh, you know, you don't want to put your date on the work. And I thought about it and I thought that was quite logical. So I don't put the date on. And some people put the title in the middle. My handwriting's not good enough for that, so I don't spoil it by putting anything written on it apart from my signature. So I'm totally reliant on you, Ben, because I don't have any questions coming up.
Ignace is surprised at the tools I use for framing, but
what Ben's framing?
That's just
tools.
what you have to use. So.
Yeah, because we do all our picture framing in the house. Let me show you one. I've got a really nice set of prints. Oh, somebody else was asking about exhibitions. I completely forgot. The Bankside Gallery are having a summer exhibition, a printmaking exhibition for the summer, and I've got some prints for that. So let me just show you one of those. So here is a Japanese woodblock print that is going off to exhibition at Bankside here, and this is done on the Shiramini paper that comes on a roll, which is really rather nice. And you can see here Ben does this very plain framing with a very deep mount, and hopefully you can see there's the number down there and then just my signature at the end there. And on the back, just to show you in case you're interested how we send stuff out, we put all sorts of information on tag, and the tag's got all the price and everything on it, so that can come off if somebody's giving it as a present. And then we give a little certificate that says it's an original print and has the details on there as well. And always write my name and the title and the technique on the back frame of the back of the frame as well. So, and a bit about caring for the glass down there. So, you know, quite a lot of information on the back of prints going out to shows. Let me just put that one back. Yeah, my computer has frozen completely. So bear with me, everybody. I'm just going to poke at the computer.
Right, there's a couple of questions here. Odette John says, do you hand burnish the heavyweight paper? I think that's
so. This is
Rosa Spina.
Right. So the Rosa Spina. If I'm doing a lino cut, no, because I've got printing presses. I wouldn't bother with that unless if I was away at a show demonstrating, in which case I'd probably use a lighter weight paper. But the Japanese woodblock technique, there is no printing press in that. That is all hand burnish.
Bert Crichton, rather controversially, says if you take an old lino and change the way you print it, can it be a new numbered series? Well, with yours that wouldn't work because it's not multi-block.
Well, I think, yeah, it's a really interesting question. It's not something that I've ever done, but I don't see why not. So if, let's say, you had this one, and, you know, if you changed the colourway and you maybe changed the foreground a bit.
If you showed the other version, I mean, that's the same block.
Yeah, I mean, these are these.
Even these,
yeah.
it's
I mean,
the
this
same
is all
block.
this. That's a very good point. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so look, if you look here, we've got two different prints. It's the same blocks, but they're quite different in appearance. So I would say that you could add another block and it becomes a different print in a different colorway. And yeah, that I would say is a new addition. But I don't know. I'm just changing the colour is a bit that would be a series, I would say. So you could, I mean, there's nothing stopping you doing a series. So you could have different colourways and it would be a series, but you'd need, I think, in fairness, to change it quite a lot for it to be a whole different edition. The Japanese woodblock artists, sort of ukiyo-e artists, quite often did different colourways of prints, but they weren't doing limited editions, so they didn't have any concept of the limited edition in Japanese woodblock at that time. So they do like a daytime version and a nighttime version and change things around to keep people buying and interested. But yeah, I think the thing is, if it's a limited edition, then you can't really kind of ooch a few more out just by changing something slightly.
Sharon wants to know which side of the Hosho she should be using.
Right, the smooth side, I would say. Paul Green says that in the woodblock series, be considering that traditionally it's not very sympathetic to people who don't want to use animal products. So are you talking about sizing with animal glue and stuff? Because what I would use for Japanese woodblock is this. So I'd be using watercolours and rice paste for printing. I doubt I will get into sizing paper on that series, but if you want to size your Japanese woodblock paper, which is sort of something to think about if you're using washi paper that I'll talk about in the series at least, then instead of animal glue, you can use what's it called, agar-agar, the seaweed equivalent of gelatin. Instead of in Japan they use niwa, which is fish glue, and we would use rabbit skin glue. So you can use a vegetable gelatin, but you have to make it twice as strong as the animal products. But yeah, I will try and offer vegetarian versions of things whenever there's an animal product involved, but there won't be really in what I'm doing. But if if you've got any issues like that, there's usually a way around them. Right, okay, so Yasmin says, do you number your prints when they are so? How do you number your prints when they're so varied, or when you print additional prints at a later date? So, with the reduction lino cuts that are quite painterly, they're all. I tend to number them as an addition. There will be slight variations in them. It's just part of the process, and they're not like they're all the same colourway, they're not different colours. You just get like slightly different textures in the printing. So I tend to call them an edition, and that usually works perfectly well. If there's sort of variation, and I think people are entitled to see different versions, we'll photograph all the prints and then number them so people can actually see the variation across the edition, and I let people choose the one they want. But that's never been a problem really. And printing them at a later date, so with my Japanese woodblock, I might have 20 in the edition, but I might print 6 and then print another 6 later. And then I try and match it as closely as possible, and I colour match, and there's not a big variation there. So that, again, it would be within the same edition. Okay, how are we doing?
Esther was agreeing about the date and asks whether the certificate has a date, which it doesn't.
No,
I don't think.
No, I don't. I don't put a date on the certificate.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. I don't know. I mean, the problem with putting dates on things is that people are a bit funny like that. They kind of want the newest thing. So it colours the way they look at stuff. And as an artist, if you've got something that you made 3 years ago, it may still be very representative of what you're doing, and that's great. And you put it in a show, and people are like, oh yeah, but that's old now. And that's always a bit heartbreaking. So I tend not to do it. I mean, I would always tell someone when I did it if they were interested. And when you apply for shows, you quite often have to say that your work is current or it's within the last 2 years or something like that. So I'm not making a secret of it. I just prefer not to put it on the print itself.
Christine just wants to know if the washi papers are all from the editioning pack.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, all the ones I've used here. So Yasmin says, if you change the block somewhat and change the inking, you can call it state 2. That sounds like you know more about that than me, actually, Yasmin, because I'm not sure. I'm not really, I've never done that. So, yeah.
Doesn't really work with reduction lino cut, does it, love?
No, it doesn't work. Yeah. Oh, carrageen. Carrageen for the seaweed gelatin. Yeah, that would work. Just check I haven't missed anything. Yeah, you might have to check. But I'm sorry about my computer freezing and stuff here. But and
there's I think we're caught up actually.
Have we caught up?
And we're also caught up with 9 o'clock.
Oh, right, okay. So what we plan to do next is we'll make some films about doing this mad tattoo print that I'm working on. And so there'll be a few of those, but they're kind of just extras. And then we plan to have a little hiatus while I get my act together to do the Japanese woodblock series. And then we'll do that, and we'll do live stream. But please don't think you can't ask lino questions when I get onto the Japanese woodblock series. I'm really happy just to talk about printmaking and what I'm working on and stuff. So hopefully you'll still join me for that. Oh, the Hosho pad, it's on the shelf there. Somebody wants to see that. Thank you. Yeah, this is the Hosho paper. This is slightly different. It's a sort of economy washi paper, and you can get that at Intaglio in London, and hand printed. Sell it down in Bognor. They do great mail order. So I know that Shirley's just got some in at hand printed, and that's a nice one to use too. It's like absolutely zero information on it.
Nothing on the back.
No, all I can tell you about this is that the gentleman who makes it is in his 80s, and Shirley's a bit nervous that he may decide to retire, but so far he hasn't, and they are still making these. So yeah, that's that one. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry I
Co-
can't give you more information about that. It's
Colleen
just
wants
like
to know
industry.
if there's a specific number in an edition.
No.
It's however many you think you can sell, isn't it?
It's, well, with a reduction print, it's as many as you don't ruin along the way. So they kind of vary, and mine often have different editions. Somebody was asking about Doris, and when Doris is making an appearance, I have never done a print of cats, and I am sometimes tempted to draw her, but I don't know where she is tonight.
You did one of Colin.
Oh, I did years ago. I did one of my neighbour's cats some years ago, but I haven't done one of Doris. Maybe I should. But she's a bit, she'd be quite hard work to do because she's quite heavily patterned. Yeah, Ginger, you might find Intaglio will ship. I don't know if they will, but Intaglio in London might ship.
Don't know.
Don't know. Oh, does the sumo... Nicholas says that the sumo tournament starts in
We must
Tokyo.
look it out.
We must look it out. We got quite addicted to watching the sumo tournaments. And we did actually go and watch a sumo tournament in Tokyo when we were there. And it was brilliant. It was really, really good. It was... we were there for an awfully long time, and it got sort of like they get better and better as the day goes on, so it kind of gets more and more exciting as it goes on rather than less and less. So it was a day well spent. It was great. Yeah, there are some great suppliers in the States for washi paper, and I think we're at time. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. And as I say, I hope that you will join me for the Japanese woodblock series. And even if you don't, do feel free to drop in on the live streams and ask lino-y based questions, because I'm very happy to do that. And we will keep... now we have sort of embraced the exciting world of YouTube, we will keep showing you what I'm doing with the lino as well. So and Ben's sort of set up a photographic equipment store down at the end of the studio, so he has got his cameras down here. Does Doris's fur get in the inks? No, she's not really a shedder. Her sister is a great shedder of fur, but she doesn't really like the studio, so Betty doesn't come in the studio with her sheddy fur. And Doris is like, she never normally does anything other than get in her bed. It's only because you guys are here and I'm talking that she shows off in the films and stuff, so she usually doesn't walk about the place.
Looks like we're having a wind-up, love.
Yeah, we are having a wind-up, thank you. And thank you, everybody, and I look forward to joining you for Japanese woodblock. And I think that's us done, isn't it?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Yeah.
Signing off now.